The stars burned cold and distant in the vast expanse of space, their ancient light bathing the void in a pale, ghostly glow. For centuries, humanity had fought to prove itself in a galaxy teeming with life, where countless alien species judged strength by fleets, technology, and military conquests. Humans, by contrast, had carved out their place through resilience, cooperation, and innovation. They endured where others faltered. They negotiated when others demanded, and they survived when the universe seemed hell-bent on breaking them. But even humanity had its limits. It started with a misunderstanding, or at least that's what the diplomats called it. A minor skirmish near the neutral zone between Earth's colonies and the dominion of Jaltar, one of the oldest and most powerful empires in the galaxy. A human research vessel, unarmed and unshielded, was destroyed in what was later described as a routine defense maneuver. The Jaltar claimed the ship had violated restricted space. Humanity protested, provided evidence that the ship had been several parsecs outside the boundary, and demanded justice. The Dominion dismissed the claims, and the Galactic Council, eager to avoid conflict, urged humanity to let the matter rest. A single ship is not worth a war, they said. For humanity, it wasn't just about the ship. It was about the people aboard. Scientists, engineers, explorers, families, lives snuffed out in an instant. And the cold indifference of the galaxy stung more than the loss itself. Still, humanity complied. They always did. Months passed, and then years. Tensions ebbed and flowed, but no one realized how deeply the wound had festered. The Jaltar grew bolder, seizing human trade ships and raiding outposts under the pretense of security concerns. The Galactic Council turned a blind eye, afraid of upsetting the fragile balance of power. Humanity continued to protest, but their voices were drowned out in the cacophony of interstellar politics. Until one day, the unthinkable happened. It was a quiet evening on Earth, a rare moment of peace in a world that rarely slept. In the skies above, the orbital station Unity buzzed with activity. It was a beacon of cooperation, home to diplomats and ambassadors from across the galaxy. Humans and aliens worked side by side, their efforts symbolizing what many believed to be the future of intergalactic relations. Without warning, the station went dark. For 20 minutes, there was no communication, no distress signal, just silence. When the station's systems finally came back online, what they revealed was chilling. The Jaltar had attacked, their warships appearing out of nowhere and unleashing chaos. Hundreds were dead, and the station was left crippled, barely holding together. The Dominion claimed it was a necessary response to a supposed human threat. A lie so brazen it stunned even the most cynical observers. This time, humanity didn't protest. They didn't send diplomats or petitions or carefully worded appeals for justice. They didn't call for sanctions or boycotts or resolutions. They went quiet. And that silence was deafening. Across the galaxy, the other species watched with unease. Humans were many things, persistent, creative, adaptable, but they were never quiet. Not like this. The Jaltar dismissed it as submission, a sign that humanity had finally learned its place. The Galactic Council urged calm, issuing platitudes about restoring harmony. But those who truly knew humans understood that something had shifted. On Earth, in hidden bunkers and secretive command centers, plans were laid. Fleet yards worked around the clock, producing ships that bore no insignia. Scientists and engineers pushed the limits of technology, creating weapons that defied conventional understanding. Every colony, every outpost, every citizen was called upon to prepare, not for war, but for survival. It wasn't about revenge. It was about sending a message. The Jaltar had always viewed humans as a minor nuisance, a young and naive species that didn't understand the harsh realities of the galaxy. They would soon learn how wrong they were. The first sign came in the form of a trade convoy, Jaltar vessels transporting resources from a distant mining colony. When the convoy didn't arrive, the Dominion assumed it was delayed. When they sent a patrol to investigate, the patrol didn't return. The second sign was more direct. A Jaltar warship stationed near the human border received a transmission. The message was simple. Enough? Moments later, The ship's sensors detected an incoming object. It wasn't a missile or a drone, but a small, unassuming shuttle. Before the crew could react, the shuttle detonated, releasing an electromagnetic pulse that rendered the ship powerless. It drifted helplessly into human territory, where it was promptly captured. By the time the Dominion realized what was happening, it was too late. Human ships appeared in systems thought to be unreachable, striking with precision and vanishing before reinforcements could arrive. They didn't target civilians or infrastructure. They went straight for the Dominion's war machine. Shipyards, supply depots, command centers, all were systematically dismantled. The galaxy watched in stunned silence. The Jaltar, who had once claimed to be invincible, were being brought to their knees. And through it all, humanity remained silent. No declarations, no demands, just action. But this was only the beginning. Far from the chaos of battle, in a hidden chamber deep beneath Earth's surface, a meeting was taking place. The most brilliant minds of humanity had gathered, their faces illuminated by the glow of holographic displays. They weren't planning the next strike or celebrating their victories. They were preparing for what would come next. Because humanity knew that once they snapped, there would be no turning back, and the galaxy would never forget the price of underestimating them. The room fell silent as a figure stepped forward, their voice calm but resolute. They wanted to see what we're capable of, they said. Let's show them. In the void of space, a fleet of human ships emerged from the shadows, their hulls gleaming like obsidian. They moved with purpose, their course set for the heart of the Dominion. At their head was a single vessel, its name emblazoned in bold letters, Retribution. And as the fleet disappeared into the darkness, the galaxy held its breath, waiting for the storm to come. The silence of the command deck aboard the Retribution was a stark contrast to the storm brewing in the hearts of its crew. The ship's captain, Alina Cross, stood at the center, her sharp eyes fixed on the holographic display that floated before her. Lines of data scrolled across the screen, detailing their targets, defenses, and strategic weaknesses. Alina was a veteran of 100 missions, but none like this. As a young officer, she had believed in the Galactic Council's vision of unity and peace. She had been part of the first human delegation to the Council, standing proudly in her crisp uniform as she listened to speeches about cooperation and equality. Now, years later, those memories felt like ghosts. The ideals she had once held dear had been shattered, replaced by the grim reality of survival. Around her, the bridge crew worked in tense silence, their movements precise and efficient. They weren't just soldiers, they were engineers, scientists, and civilians who had been called to serve. Each of them had a story, a reason for being here. Some had lost family to the Jaltar attacks. Others had seen their homes destroyed, their lives upended. They didn't speak of vengeance, but it was etched into every line of their faces. The fleet's destination was a Jaltar command station, a key hub in their military network. Capturing or disabling it would cripple their ability to coordinate defenses across the sector. But the mission wasn't without risk. The station was heavily guarded, its defenses designed to repel even the most determined assault. Alina's second-in-command, Lieutenant Marcus Vren, stepped up beside her, his voice low. We've received the latest intelligence from command. The station's defenses include automated turrets, a reinforced shield array, and a garrison of at least 3,000 troops. We'll have to move fast if we want to take it before reinforcements arrive. Alina nodded, her mind already working through the possibilities. The fleet had been outfitted with experimental technology, cloaking devices, advanced hacking tools, and weapons that operated on principles few fully understood. They gave humanity an edge, but they weren't infallible. One mistake, one miscalculation, could cost them everything. Prepare the assault teams, Alina said, her voice steady. We'll strike hard and fast. No hesitation. Marcus hesitated for a moment, then spoke. Do you think they'll surrender? Alina turned to face him, her expression unreadable. The Jaltar don't surrender. They'll fight to the last, no matter the cost. That's why we have to make this count. As Marcus moved to relay her orders, Alina allowed herself a brief moment of reflection. She thought of her family back on Earth, her parents, who had lived through the struggles of humanity's early days in space, her younger brother, who had joined the resistance after losing his best friend in the attack on Unity. They were why she fought. They were why she couldn't fail. Across the galaxy, the Jaltar were beginning to realize the scope of humanity's response. Reports of their losses were spreading, whispered in back rooms and shadowy corridors. Other species watched with a mix of fear and fascination, unsure of what to make of this sudden shift. The humans who had once been dismissed as weak and insignificant were proving themselves to be something far more dangerous. For centuries, the Jaltar had ruled through fear. Their fleets were unmatched, their armies relentless. They crushed any who dared to oppose them, leaving a trail of broken worlds in their wake. But now, for the first time, they faced an enemy that refused to be cowed. In the halls of the Dominion's Central Command, High Overlord Kashin Rao stared at the reports with growing unease. The humans were not attacking like traditional forces. They didn't engage in drawn-out battles or seek to conquer territory. Instead, they struck with surgical precision, dismantling the Dominion's infrastructure piece by piece. Kashin had underestimated them. He had seen the humans as a minor annoyance, a species too new to the galactic stage to pose a real threat. But their actions spoke of a deeper understanding of warfare, of patience, strategy, and determination. It was clear they had been planning this for years, perhaps longer. The Overlord's advisors urged caution, suggesting negotiations or a temporary ceasefire. But Kashin dismissed the idea with a snarl. To admit weakness now would be to invite rebellion from within the Dominion's ranks. The only way to end this was to crush the humans completely, to remind the galaxy why the Jaltar had ruled unchallenged for so long. What Kashin didn't understand, what none of his kind could comprehend, was that humanity wasn't fighting for power or territory. They were fighting for their future, for their very existence. And when pushed to the brink, humans had a way of defying even the most impossible odds. Back aboard the Retribution, the assault teams were gearing up for the mission. The ship's armory buzzed with activity as soldiers checked their weapons and equipment. Among them was Lieutenant Sarah Cole, a former engineer who had volunteered for combat duty after her colony was attacked. Sarah's hands trembled slightly as she loaded her rifle, but her eyes were steady. She had seen firsthand what the Jaltar were capable of, their cruelty, their disregard for life. She had no illusions about the risks of this mission, but she was ready to face them. Beside her, Corporal Dax Trennan offered a faint smile. "Nervous?" he asked. "Terrified," Sarah admitted. "But that's normal, right?" Dax nodded, his tone light but his expression serious. "Yeah, if you weren't, I'd be worried. Just stick to the plan, and we'll get through this." Sarah nodded, taking a deep breath to steady herself. She wasn't just fighting for her own survival. She was fighting for the people who couldn't. As the assault teams prepared to deploy, the Retribution entered the final phase of its approach. The ship's cloaking device hummed softly, masking its presence from the station's sensors. On the bridge, Alina watched the tactical display, her fingers gripping the edge of the console. The moment of truth was near. The fleet was ready, the plan in motion. But even the best-laid plans couldn't account for every variable. And as the station loomed ahead, its defenses glowing like a beacon in the darkness, one thing was certain: this was only the beginning. The galaxy had underestimated humanity for too long. Now they would learn what it meant to push a species to its breaking point. And when the dust settled, no one would forget the day humans finally snapped.